Hi, everybody. Welcome to Career Compass Media, where we talk about everything related to careers. So, today's message is on one-on-one meetings and really the importance, structure, and thought that should go into giving a good one-on-one meeting. So, if you're a new manager, or maybe you're a manager or supervisor who's been a little disengaged, hopefully the tips that I give you here today will help you re-engage with your employees and also show you the importance of having one-on-one meetings on a regular basis. So, let's get started. So first and foremost, let's talk about the frequency of a one-on-one meeting. Obviously, the number of direct reports that you have is going to dictate how much you can meet with people, how much time out of your day with all your other responsibilities that you can actually set aside time to meet with people and have a good one-on-one session. At a minimum, though, I would recommend that you meet with your staff one-on-one at least once a week. For sure, don't go more than a month without touching base with your staff on a regular basis to make sure that you don't have these major gaps in time. And if you think about it, if you schedule a monthly one-on-one, it's great that you get it on the calendar, but let's say you have your one-on-one in January. And your next one obviously is set up for February, but maybe you're sick that day, or maybe something happens and a fire, it shoots off and you have to go put out a fire somewhere, and you can't make your February meeting. All of a sudden, your next scheduled one-on-one meeting is in March. That's a lot of time through the course of a year to lose and not touch base with your staff. When we think about what all can happen in 2 months' time, you could have, hundreds of different client interactions, hundreds of different peer interactions, technology issues. Think of a project timeline. Oftentimes on a project timeline, if you've assigned it to someone, they're going to have so many things hit, so many deadlines made, maybe once every week or once every month. And if you go a 2-month time frame without checking in to see how things are going, that just opens up a real big window of time for failure points to happen, for frustration to build, and really is something that you should try at all costs to avoid. So again, I highly recommend, if you can, meet with your staff weekly or bi-weekly, but for sure, don't go more than a month without having a good, solid, thoughtful one-on-one with your staff. All right, so now that we've talked about the frequency, let's talk about the planning process for your one-on-one meetings. Now, I highly recommend that you find different maybe textbooks, or maybe you go to some sessions, or maybe you just look for some guidance or tutorials online on practical ways to set up a one-on-one meeting and things that you should talk about. And an example that I use on a regular basis is actually from a book called The 27 Challenges Managers Face. It was written by Bruce Talgan. I've actually had the privilege to meet Bruce, work on some projects with him, and actually sit through some of his sessions. And what I like about this particular book is it gives me just some real practical advice and some real simplified versions of things that I can do to make sure that I'm covering the things that I need, but also provide structure to my meetings and a little bit of thought before I just dive into a meeting and don't have anything planned. So what I use out of this particular book are just a couple of the recommended lists and worksheets that you can put together, and I've actually got some samples that I'll put up here. This first one is literally just the who, what, when, where, why, and how list. And it's literally that simple. You just pull out a notepad, across the top, write who, what, where, when, why, and how, and then you list all of your direct reports in the who column. And then what you need to talk about comes next for each person. Now, if you have 5 direct reports, maybe a couple are new hires, your conversations, the what, if you will, is going to be different than someone who's maybe worked for you for 10 or 15 years, or maybe someone who is on a performance improvement plan, right? But you have to write down and think through, what is it I need to talk with each of these individuals about? And then from there, you simply, work your way down. So you got the who, the what, the where. Maybe if you're trying to give someone kudos, maybe you want to take them out for a nice cup of coffee and congratulate them, give them maybe a one-on-one lunch with you, outside the office. If it's going to be maybe something that's a little bit more of like a corrective action, or some maybe tough feedback, you're going to want to maybe do that in a closed door session in your office, or maybe a separate conference room away from where the work environment is. But think of where you're going to do that. Where I recommend you put a lot of your time also is the how. And I say that because you're going to meet people and you're going to work with people that, you say one sentence and it's like they're reading your thoughts. They know exactly what you want. They know exactly what is needed of them, and you're both on the same page. And then you have some other people where you could say it the exact same way, and they don't really understand what you need, or they need much more clarification. So you might have to say it 2 or 3 different ways. Or it might not be a conversation. It might be something where it's a conversation, but then maybe a live demonstration or those types of things. So put a little of extra emphasis on the how. How are you going to talk to that person to make sure that it's an effective conversation and you both leave feeling comfortable that you're both on the same page? So the second resource that I use out of this particular book is really the open-ended questions that are presented in the book. Now, an open-ended question is something that allows for dialogue. Of course, you're always going to have those closed-ended questions on more project-based stuff, right? So if you have a project and there's a timeline, you can ask, okay, these are your timeline items. Did you get to timeline 1? Yes, check, right? So there are going to be those types of questions, but really for a good one-on-one, you got to drill deeper into details of what's helping them at work and what's hindering them at work. And how you do that is with open-ended questions. And so in the book, it's really very simple. There's 3 open-ended questions that are offered. What's going right, what's going wrong, and what's going average. So when I use these particular questions, what I do is I write down what I think is going right, wrong, and average before the person comes in. And then I have them obviously come in, start the meeting, and then they give me what's going right, wrong, or average. And then I can kind of compare to see if there's a little bit of a gap between, if I think something is going very, very well, but they feel are a little bit down about it, like they're not quite moving forward as fast as they think they should be, and they see that as a negative. You know what? I can address that gap and really build them really that confidence they need to know that they're on the right path, and vice versa. If they think something is going great and I see it as more of an issue, as maybe something that's going average, that they're really not evolving as quickly as possible or taking initiative as quickly as possible, we can address that and then have action plans moving forward. And as you can see on the worksheet that I have here, not only do I have those 3 questions, but I also have action items, outcomes of these particular discussions that we can then move forward and talk with next time. All right, so now for my final tip, which is documentation. There's the 4D rule in management and compliance and really everything related to business. If you didn't document it, you didn't do it. Take time. If you're going to have questions that you're going to ask, write down answers to those questions. Give follow-up emails showing that you had the meeting. Hey, just want to follow up. Thanks for your time. Here's my notes from the meeting. Let's meet again for our next meeting on this particular date while we'll keep moving these conversations forward. But essentially what you're doing is documenting that these things happen for a couple reasons. First and foremost, if progress isn't being made, you can come back and say, hey, we've talked about this now for 4 weeks, and see, here's the documentation we've talked about over and over. What is it that's holding you up? And you can help kind of move those things forward, but really point out that traction needs to be made on some of these projects. The other thing you can do is actually use it for the positive side of discussions. And what I mean by that is if you have 52 weeks of meeting notes that shows the person has made progress, hit all of their action items, is hitting all the high points from discussion and making constant improvements, that's amazing. Point that out. That's something worth recognizing in your one-on-one meetings. Hey, you know what I've been doing is I've been going through all of these and you're knocking it out of the park. I want to maybe think about promoting you, or I want to maybe think about having you be a mentor, or whatever the case might be. But it's not just punitive. A lot of times we think of documentation as, oh, well, you do that in case you have to make some type of a punitive action against somebody. It's way more than that. It keeps you on the same page, it keeps you engaged, and it gives you also that opportunity to offer some really thoughtful and really concrete reasons why you're going to maybe give someone an extra raise over somebody else, and really advocate for that person from a rewards and recognition standpoint. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you like the content today, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe. And more importantly, if there's some content that you would like to see built, please add that to the comment section. I'd love to be able to build some custom content to what the viewers want to see. Take care.